Okay. I've already tried recording this a few times, which is not the first time that's happened to me with a video. There's times where I think when I was doing my like Trails in the Sky SC video, that was either it went super swimmingly or it took me a while to get into it. I know I've had some recent ones, like I think my metaphor video took me a few attempts, but sometimes I'll like know what I want to say, but I have trouble getting there, and I don't know why. It just happens. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to be like try to get to the point quickly as I'm having this long preamble because I think that'll help to just be direct. I don't think I'm gonna resume reading Project Horizons anytime soon. If you remember, or you might just have this randomly on your feed or be new to the channel or something, and if so, like, hi. Nice to meet you. But last year I decided I was going to reread Project Horizons, and I wanted to try to end it before or around October of this year, or excuse me, not October, August, because the story that was actually when it ended was in August of 2015. So I kind of wanted to reread it for like its 10-year anniversary because it's a story that has stuck with me a lot in the past decade, and admittedly, not for the best of reasons. There's a lot of things I do genuinely like about the story, but there's a lot of things I don't that I have complained about profusely. Because that's just kind of part of my personality. It's like, when something sticks with me, for better or for worse, it is going to stick with me. And what I had decided to do for rereading Project Horizons was kind of a few things. Was number one, obviously I'm going to reread it. Number two, I wanted to make a video after every chapter, just in a way to kind of chronicle my journey going through it, even going through it a second time. Like, all right, this is what happened in the chapter. As someone rereading it, here's some of the major foreshadowing bits I noticed in the chapter. Here's the amount of times Blackjack has used one of her catchphrases in this chapter because she has a good handful. This is how many times we have heard these catchphrases at this point in the story. Also, this is just the amount of people Blackjack has killed at this point. Partially, part of that was because I very much enjoyed watching the Dead Meat channel, like the kill count videos. Haven't watched one in a while, sorry, James and Chelsea. But, it's like, I really liked that, and I thought doing a kill count for Horizons would be fun, or at least, like, one for Blackjack specifically. But also, because one of the things that frustrates me so much about Blackjack's character is her, like, I don't want to kill people. Kills hundreds of people as the story goes on. And it's, for me, I didn't often feel like it didn't really work for me. Like, it wasn't this is a character who was forced to make these decisions, although sometimes, like, it is and it works, but there's a lot of times where I'm like, for someone who's like, I don't want to kill, like, like, I'm not an executioner, boy, you sure do get trigger happy easy. And like, it just didn't work. And part of it was like a genuine curiosity of like, yeah, how high does that number go for Blackjack? But also to kind of highlight my point and issue with her character of, this is how many times in the story she says, I'm not an executioner, or that, security saves. This is how many times that clearly didn't work. And I mean, there's a difference between, killing someone in self-defense in a firefight and like execute, like I get it, but there's also times where, Blackjack, that one was kind of on you. Like, you 100% started the issue. Like, I don't want to get super deep into it. I've done that enough already. But after part one, because I read through part one, the security mirror, and said, okay, I'm good to keep going. I'm gonna take a break because I never made like a worm video. Just like kind of like, here's my final overall thoughts on this story, and I want to do like a worm tier list. And before I do that, I want to rewatch all of my old Worm videos. And I didn't do that. I did do the Worm tier list, because when I did my end of year for 2024 and I did like things that I read, I just ranked every arc of Worm while I did it. But I don't actually remember if I just said like I'm gonna kind of do sorry, you know what, bad. I don't remember if I actually did it like here are my parting thoughts on Worm now that I finished it and kind of slept on it. I genuinely don't know if I did that. But anyways, that was what delayed continuing Horizons, was I want to do this instead and then I'll get back to it, but I never did that thing. Or even if I did, I still never got back to Horizons. So my plan was like, okay, at some point this year, I'm gonna get back into it. You know, like I've listened to a lot of albums this year, and I've really enjoyed that. And I was like, okay, you know, maybe like in 1 month I'll listen to a bunch of albums, and the next month like I'll listen to a bunch of the audiobook. And then I wasn't doing that, so I was like, oh, okay, you know, maybe when I'm done listening to like these albums, which are like the high tier ones I really wanted to listen to, then I'll do Horizons. And I didn't. I was like, okay, well, that happened while I was still playing Metaphor. So when I finish Metaphor, then I'm gonna do it. And that was the end of May, and we're at the end of July, and I still haven't. So it's something that at first was bothering me, just because of the, like, come on, dude. Like, you said you were gonna do it. You wanna do it. You gotta do it. Why aren't you doing it? But then I really kind of sat and thought about it. Why am I not doing it? Why don't I want to reread the rest of this story? Because I don't want to. And to me, there's a big reason and other medium reasons. Because they're not small reasons. Like, there are genuine things. I'll talk about those first. And then I'll hit what I think is the big one. The more medium reasons I don't want to do it are, number one, it's long. Oh my gosh, Project Horizon is so long. To put it in perspective, I have already finished part 1. So I have 4 books left. Oh, what do they all call this? Blood and Stars, Homecoming, Horizons, and I don't remember what part 4 is called. I don't know why I can never remember what it's called. Like, I'm trying to remember it, but it's just not there, which is funny because I think it's my favorite, but it's kind of my favorite because it's the one that bothers me the least, although it has probably my least favorite scene in the series. It's the, I know I said I wasn't going to get into it, but I can't help it with Horizons. I'm going to get into it a little bit. It's the scene where, what is it? It's like Pip's friends are talking to Blackjack's friend. Oh, the Sentinels. That's what I called the crew. Like I really like that nickname for them. But they were talking to the Sentinels, and they're talking about like all the things that Blackjack has been through. You know, all of her like addictions and her mental issues and blah 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 blah. And there's a bit where Calamity just looks at Homage. It's like, oh, it kind of makes you miss Party Time Mentals, doesn't it? I'm like, this line is like everything that's wrong with Project Horizons, and I'm not going to go into it further than that. But it has that scene, and I hate it. But almost the rest of part 4, I'm like, I don't... Okay, there's still some problems. But, man, there are things in part 3 that are great, and then there's things that bother me, and there's the same with part 2, and there's a lot of things in part 2 that are absolutely fantastic. And part 5, I think for the most part didn't bother me that much, but I hated the ending. And like I said, I don't want to get into a whole thing because it's so easy for me to do it because I've been doing it for years. But to my point, I have about 60 chapters left to read. And in the audiobook, each one, on average, is anywhere from like 2.5 hours to 3.5 hours. That's a lot. Like, just kind of thinking about that, I'm like, okay, so if I were to read, like, could I read a chapter a day? Sure. Could I read like a chapter a week or like a couple a week? Sure. But it's the equivalent of essentially saying, okay, I'm going to watch a Lord of the Rings film. Possibly a regular version, possibly an extended edition, like depending on the length of the chapter, like every day or like multiple times a week. That's a lot of time. And that's time I could like do other stuff. And yes, like it's an audiobook, so I can multitask, but like I'm not gonna listen to Project Horizons at work. No, it's like I have like stuff I need to focus on. I'm not gonna listen to it while I'm writing, because like if I'm writing, I gotta be focusing on my story, not something else. If I'm playing a game, it kind of depends on the game. Like if I'm playing something like Digimon Survive, which is a lot of reading, Horizons is gonna distract from that. If I'm playing, I don't know, a game like if I'm playing Torna again, which at some point I need to, where there is a lot of like downtime and travel time, sure, I think that's kind of a good time for it. But man, it's just a lot. And on top of it being a lot, it's so bleak. And I don't mind a darker story. Again, like my favorite work of fiction is Madoka Magica. Two of my other favorite works of fiction, here's one of them right here with Umineko. Not a happy story. Another one is Muv-Luv. Not a happy story. Like, a lot of my favorite stories aren't happy. They are very dark. They can be very bleak. And I remember saying at some point this year, I don't remember what I was talking about. I want to say it was during the metaphor video, but maybe it wasn't. I was like, I feel like I'm starting to lean more toward more optimistic stories and happier stories. Like, I think that's kind of what I want to invest my time into. As I say, as I've been playing Digimon Survive and love it. But when something is as long as Horizons and as bleak as Horizons, it makes me a lot less like, oh man, I can't wait to keep reading it. Because like, man, I know what's coming. And a lot of it I just don't like anyways. But it's also just so aggressively unpleasant. Which also kind of gets into the other problem of, yeah, I've already read it. I know what's coming. And this is a story that is stuck with me for a long time. So I'm still pretty well familiar with it. Like, yeah, there's some things I don't quite remember, and I might get, like, some events mixed up a little bit. But no, I still have a pretty good memory of what happens in the story and, like, what happens to which characters and such. So that, like, man, I gotta keep reading to know what's gonna happen. I don't have that here, because I already know what's gonna happen. And yeah, like, I don't mind rewatching something or rereading something, but again, when it's so aggressively unpleasant and so long, these problems really compound. And with me saying, man, I want to write, like, I want to do a video after every chapter, you know, just kind of chronicling the journey, but also, like, part of it is that, and part of it is also, how does this chapter contribute to the story? Like, in terms of the actual events, in terms of the foreshadowing, why, not necessarily like a super, why was this chapter necessary, but it's like, what does this chapter add to the whole? And like, reading book one, from what I remember, I was like, yeah, most of these do, although there were some where I was like, look, like, you could maybe combine these, or like, you have a blah, 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 blah. And for like another 60 chapters that are all like 2.5 to 3 hours long, that's gonna be a lot. That's gonna be a lot. Just listening to it and then taking my notes as I'm listening to it, which means I'm gonna have to keep pausing the video so I can get my mind going, and then organizing my notes in a way that's like makes sense to me, and then having to go back and double check things because I had to do that quite a few times. Then actually sitting down and recording. This task gets more Herculean the more I put on it. And I think I did the math about like how, like, all my videos talking about like part 1 and such, I think it was like 13 hours, which is insane. Like, no, I did not spend 13 hours on part 1. Oh no! I can only imagine how long I'm gonna spend in like part 3. But those are my medium reasons, and I feel like those are genuinely good, legitimate reasons for saying I don't know if I don't think I'm gonna do this. Here's my big reason. I made my peace with it. Because like I've said, it's a story that's stuck with me for a long time, and not for always the best of reasons. While there's a lot of genuine things I love about the story that have stuck with me as well, a lot of it has just been like, alright, this makes me mad, this makes me mad. Clay, I got a vent about this, and Clay going, you've told me this like 4 times already. I know, but it's still bothering me. And then I talked for like 3 hours. Shout out to Clay for having to deal with me in Project Horizons for like 10 years. But that was kind of the main reason why I wanted to do this, and why I want to say this. I wanted to reread it partially to kind of genuinely see, have I been too mean to it? Like, does this story really bother me the way that it does? Like, did I just kind of make it my own joke? Is it really that frustrating? But also, some of the things where it's like, yeah, I want to total how many times Blackjack kills somebody, and also how many times she uses her catchphrases, saying how much she doesn't want to. That's genuinely, I think, an interesting endeavor, but it's rooted in something really mean. And I also had decided, because there's a chapter about halfway through called Lucidity, which is one of my favorite chapters in the story, which posits the idea that nothing in Project Horizons is actually happening and Blackjack is just crazy. But by the end of the chapter, it's like, no, she's not crazy. Okay, Blackjack's got her issues, but it's, no, this is all actually happening. She was just in a simulation. But then when you skip to the finale, not the epilogue, gosh, the epilogue, I'm not going to get into it, but when you actually get to the final chapter, the final boss tries pulling the same trick, to which Blackjack goes like, hey, I've already had that trick pulled on me, it's not gonna work, buddy, fuck you, and like, things end. And I remember reading that and thinking, oh yeah, what if instead of doing Lucidity halfway through, what if this was just saved for the ending? And it was maybe the ending. Like, maybe it's like intentionally like, no, this is straight up what happened. Maybe it's left to be more ambiguous. But what if it was saved for the end? And it's kind of something for the audience to really think about and consider. That's a really interesting idea. I kind of want to reread Horizons with that interpretation in mind. And thinking about the story, yeah, I can see quite a few ways where that can work. Let's try it. And again, part of that was like a genuine, this is an interesting idea, I want to see if it works. Part of it was also, yeah, I kind of like the idea of rereading Project Horizons, and my interpretation is nothing in the story is actually happening, and that'll probably make it a better experience. Rooted in something very mean. And as I was rereading part 1, I realized there's a lot of support for this interpretation. A lot more than I was expecting. Like, again, it was like, I can see it here, but even as I was arguing it was at the start, before I actually started rereading, I was like, I acknowledge this is kind of a stretch, but I just kind of want to see how it works. About halfway through, I was like, okay, this like works. This works a little too well. Was this intentional? Like, was this actually something like, this is what he wanted to do, and then about halfway through kind of teased what was happening, and then threw it in the end as well, where it's like, yeah, it's, I'm not gonna put a lot of focus on it because I know it's gonna piss people off, but this is kind of the idea. Like, I don't think so, but there's a lot more support to it than I expected. And I remember reading the final chapter of part 1, which is great. It's the Deus fight, and it's really cool. Like, they just have the dude explode. It's great. But if I remember correctly, like, the ending of the chapter was just, like, Blackjack talking to P21 and Glory, and if I remember correctly, they both just, like, hug her. And from my interpretation, it's like, well, both of them represent different aspects of Blackjack's, like, almost like Blackjack's soul. Because there's a scene in Lucidity, what, like, sent Blackjack in her spiral was she was sexually assaulted by someone she knew, by a friend, and that was Steel Rain. And part of my theory is that, yeah, like, everything in the Wasteland, in Huffington, I guess the Wasteland in general, but, like, all the Huffington stuff specifically, is this is how Blackjack is dealing with her trauma. Like, in this world, she is this person who endures a lot, has to persevere through so much, but she's also, like, the most important person because everyone knows, you know, as it goes on, like, she has this great reputation, she's super strong, she's badass, everyone knows who Security is. Like, she's the one who has to carry EC-1101, like, she's the, it's not like the chosen one, but she has that special bloodline, and, you know, blah blah blah. It is a world where she is essentially the most important person in it, and is the most, like, badass person there is. And P21, among some, like, other things, represents Blackjack after the incident, and is that just really angry part of herself that wants justice, but mostly just wants revenge. And Glory is her before the incident. This is that version of her that still has her innocence. And man, like, Glory's branding under this perspective, like, it's not that it's, like, a happy scene anyways. Like, it's a hard scene to read. It was brutal like this. So the book ending with, like, both versions of her, like, giving her a hug and just kind of telling her, like, you're gonna be okay, was such a beautiful way for the book to end. And I remember even at the time being like, I'm gonna keep reading, but I feel like I could stop here and be happy with, like, how I'm reading the story. This is kind of a perfect ending. And yeah, I haven't read it since. Like, I read a little bit of chapter 17 at one point, and then was like, yeah, I got stuff to do. This is 2 hours and 45 minutes. I don't want to do this. And that's kind of when I realized, that's when I first realized, like, okay, I don't think I'm actually going to do this, but I kind of want to sit on this more and, like, think about it more. But I did realize I genuinely liked book 1 a lot more under this interpretation. And you can argue, it's like, well, in that case, you know, definitely read the others. Like, how well does this interpretation hold up? You know, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm like, I feel like I kind of made my peace with the story. It doesn't, like, it's still stuck with me, but it doesn't bother me the way it used to. And maybe that's just, like, other things in my life as well, where it's like, for example, I watched Stardust Memory with Clay, and neither of us particularly liked it. And we also watched G-Quux together, and neither of us particularly liked it. But he was a lot more incensed with them than I was. And I remember just kind of thinking to myself, it's like, you know, a good, like, few years ago, I would have been, like, really mad at these for just, like, how, in my opinion, like, how they fumbled their stories. And now I'm just kind of like, yeah, like that wasn't good. Here's like I can articulate why I don't think it's good. I spent like an hour doing it for G-Clux, and I'm still kind of tinkering with my notes for Stardust Memory. But I've realized, generally speaking, I just don't get that mad about that like stuff anymore. Which I'll take. Like it's nice to have that peace. I hope it lasts. And even in this video, like there's those moments where I'm like, I can feel the hate flowing through me. But like I don't know. I don't feel this need to read Horizons with this more kind of bitter mindset of, yeah, the story's probably a lot better if none of it happens. Like let's look at how many times like Blackjack says, I'm not gonna kill anybody, and all the time she does. Like I don't want to do that. I don't need to do that. I kind of made my peace with this because of just how much I think the story, and like even things I genuinely don't like in the story at face value, but how much a lot of those elements work under this interpretation, I just think I'm good. So that being said, yeah, I don't really plan on continuing that. Now, there might be a point where I'm like, you know what? I'm good to do it. I feel like doing it. Or maybe I'll do it, but I won't like make a video after every chapter. So like we'll see. But I think I can officially say I'm good. I don't think I'm going to continue that series. That being said, the plan was I was going to do Horizons and then start Ward. So I might start that pretty soon. Now, I might run into the same problem where I just never get around to it, because Ward is also very long, and Ward is also something that, from what I understand, is very bleak. And given how happy Worm is, that doesn't surprise me. But it is something I haven't read yet. And I am looking forward to it. Like, we'll see. There might be a point where I'm like, look, this story just isn't doing it for me. It's like, oh no, this is just Horizons all over again. I'm not going down this rabbit hole no more. But I think, I'm not going to commit to it yet, but I think, excuse me, I'll probably start Ward relatively soon. Which is pretty funny to me, because it was kind of around this time last year that I was finishing Worm. So I might start Ward like exactly a year after I finished Worm. I don't know, that's kind of neat to me. But this is something I've been thinking about for a while, because there was like several Car Talk videos in a while where I was like, yeah, I'm going to start Horizons. I haven't yet, but I will. And the next week, yeah, I still haven't. And then the next week, I still haven't. And I just stopped talking about it because I was annoyed at the fact that I keep bringing it up but not doing it. So I just kind of wanted to like really sit with it, talk about it. Cool.